Hey there, YouTube. We're jumping into part 2 of our Memorial Day special. We're going to listen to some interviews from Iraq War veterans and also Ukrainian War veterans. Of course, in part 1, if you want to catch that, we listened to World War I veterans and Vietnam veterans as well. And, you know, I really should have, you know, maybe next Memorial Day, I'll get some interviews with soldiers in the wars that we fought on the other side. Of course, we don't need to hear from no fucking Nazis, right? I don't really give a shit what they have to say. But yeah, you know, maybe we'll get. I should have an interview with a Vietnamese soldier ready to go. I would say that would be appropriate. Let's get that ready to go for next year, producer. Put that in the notes there, show notes.
My name is Isaiah James.
Anyway, this is Isaiah James, Iraq War veteran, and well, he's right straight to the point. This is only a minute and a half, but he doesn't mince words, not one bit.
My name is Isaiah James. I'm an Iraq War veteran. Went 2 times to Iraq, also went once to Afghanistan. My job in the Army was 11 Bravo. For those who don't know, that's infantry. My additional skill identifier is Bravo 4. For those who don't know, that is a sniper. First deployment was 15 months. Second deployment was 12 months. Third deployment was 12 months. So I've been there 39 months of combat.
Jesus Christ.
Straight fighting. I could take a rifle and clear a room and do all this crazy stuff. I've air assaulted out of helicopters. I've grabbed dudes and put bags over their heads and zip tied them and put them on helicopters and saw them being flown away and they were never seen again. The Iraq War did not need to happen. It should not have happened. Iraq did nothing to us. And we killed 1 million Iraqi civilians, lost 5,000 plus American soldiers. For what? It diminished our standing in the world. It damn near bankrupted our coffers. All it did was make the war machine get bigger and stronger in America. I think anybody who's been shot at and blown up and seen people blown to literal pieces is anti-war. If you're not, and this is I'm speaking directly to every veteran out there, if you love war, then you've never actually been in it. I don't give a damn if you serve, you've never seen somebody take their last breath in a violent situation. You've never seen it. I have. It's not pretty.
It is not pretty. And while I haven't been in a combat situation, I've certainly seen exactly what he's talking about because there's no avoiding it. If you start following any kind of combat footage or any kind of subreddit or any kind of Discord that has this kind of content, you see it quite a bit. Soldiers taking their last breath, getting ripped to shreds, getting ripped in half. Most recent one I saw that's definitely stuck in my brain is the Russian soldier who was sleeping out, kind of out in the open, kind of under a tree, kind of under cover, pretty obvious, and a Ukrainian grenade drops right on his gut there and explodes him from the inside. Of course the drone needs to zoom in then on the person as he's dying. So I don't need to go to combat. I don't need to go to the front line to know exactly what this guy's talking about and to agree with him and say, there's no, if you're calling for war, you need to understand what you're calling for. And I do think that there, in terms of the politicians and whatnot, I do think there needs to be some kind of accountability or something, at the very least, some kind of demand that you've seen what war does to people. It's pretty shocking to think that we have leaders that, all Adolf Hitler style, afraid of blood. They don't want to see the damage they're doing. Maybe they should be forced to see it, right? If they want to lead us, they should be forced to see what they're doing to us. Fantasy, though, will never happen. So we got another Iraq War veteran interview. War is not like the movies. High production values. Yeah, I paid for this.
Okay, so when I was growing up, I always watched MASH, an older, the older show where it has the nurse.
Yeah, John Axel, that's a great question. John Axel asking, how does it keep perpetuating? Through what I've noticed is that the systems that have to convince people that it's worth doing, right, shooting somebody up and going to another country and fucking them up for some reason or another. Those systems, those propaganda systems, have gotten much more sophisticated. They can no longer just tug at your heartstrings or say, "Oh, they called your mother gay," and then you're going off, right? You actually need to have like a multi-billion-dollar media apparatus and talking heads and this whole propaganda wing that repeats your message, and it's gotten very, very sophisticated in how propaganda works now. So, and I think the reason why is that people have gotten more clever, and they've also gotten more access to information through technology. So even the stupidest amongst us can't can't avoid some information, right? But you would be shocked. Go head on over to your to the smallest town in your state and ask people questions about politics. I mean, you'll be shocked. People don't know who presidents are. People don't know who vice presidents are, right? There are millions of people who are 100% politics, don't know what that is. Like, I just got done binge watching some TV show I really enjoy, and I got a job, and I got 6 kids, and they don't know what the fuck's going on, right?
Okay, so when I was growing up, I always watched MASH, an older, the older show where it has the nurses in the Vietnam War. And war's a lot different in the movies and on TV than it is in real life. Completely different.
Welcome back, Rob.
I can't even say there's really any similarities to the movies and actually being there. It's pretty amazing to see the sacrifices that the men and women make for not just people back in America, but the citizens of Iraq too. They're not all terrorists. They're just like us, and a lot of them would help us. And to see the Iraqi citizens and the American soldiers come in blown to pieces, really, and be wanting to go back out there, to be asking about their buddy, no concern for themselves, to be dying and be asking, but what about so-and-so? It's hard to put that in words. It's hard to really describe how you feel when that's going on. It's hard to see the children that are involved in this. And even there was a lot of times that I just thought, I can't leave this place. It was harder to leave there than it was to go. And that's really hard to explain that to people. But there's a lot of pride that you have being there. You feel like you're supposed to be there. And when you can save somebody's life and know that they're okay and they're going to see their family, then you can't get that anywhere else. You can't get that feeling. But at the same time, when you save somebody who just blew up your friends, who blew up the children, who's telling you repeatedly how they're going to do it to you, that's really difficult to deal with. It's very hard to do that, to be able to give them your full care and let it be in someone else's hands because it's not your choice. So it's hard. It's hard to put it into words. I don't.
Wow. Really. I mean, what I have just no words. It's really just her matter of fact frankness. About these horrors that she's witnessed, what she went through. Of course, there was really no, and that we maybe in the full interview we'd get more context about what her opinion of why we were there. But I think that's really the linchpin that drives a lot of these poor people to suicide in Roblox. Is the you've sacrificed so much. You think it's like this is so important, right? This I've given so much. I've seen so many people give it all, give everything. And then even their last breath, they're asking about the mission or asking about, their battle buddy. And then you get back and, you get time to think about it. It's very high. It's too high. I mean, one is too many, but the statistics are really very depressing. But, you get back and you realize, you get time to think and you realize, what the hell were we even doing there? They're really, especially, I mean, I can't imagine. I really should have had some interviews with some Afghanistan veterans, because I can't imagine how they feel. I mean, seeing, America pull out. Of course, we needed to leave, but just seeing how quickly, literally everything they fought for, every single sacrifice they made, dissolved in minutes. And, you can't help but reminisce. It feels a lot like Vietnam, right? 20 veterans die from suicide per day. That's not a joke. It's not a fucking joke, right? And that's the result of the military-industrial complex justifying its existence and creating a bunch of pointless and meaningless quagmires, where they get to sharpen their knives and, test out their toys and, make a fucking mint, okay? Make a fucking fortune, all right? There shouldn't be a single goddamn citizen of the United States living high off the hog, because of missiles and shit. That should be strictly nonprofit, paid for by the government, dry as a goddamn public library, and yet we got private companies making fucking oodles. You think they're going to stop that gravy train? Look at the goddamn budget. Grand majority of our money going right into their pockets. Why in the world would they stop that? And if you try, guess what the fuck's going to happen? You either play ball, okay, or you get JFK'd. We got a serious problem. We've had a serious problem for a really goddamn long time, okay? And 9/11, sorry, can't. Oh no, he said it. He fucking said it. He said the numbers. And 9/11 has a lot to do with this. It was a re-justification of the dominance of the military-industrial complex. And what did we see from the mainstream media? A reinforcement of that assumption that there is no higher power than the military-industrial complex. I mean, literally, you are not allowed to be a Jake Tapper level journalist and criticize the military-industrial complex. Not in any kind of critical way. Maybe along the edges. Yeah, and thank you, John Axel, for all your sources and information. I don't need to see it. I mean, this is old hat, man. This is old school shit. Talking about no. When's the last time Vosh brought this up? Hopefully recently. Hopefully he. I don't watch his goddamn show, so hopefully he does talk about the military-industrial complex and what it's doing to us. Maybe he is that astute. I don't know. I see a whole lot of jib-jabbing about motherfucking bullshit is what I see every time I check that shit out. Tune in for about 30 seconds. Yeah, okay, had enough. Bye. He said, she said, who gives a fuck? We got a serious problem here. We're all going to sit around flipping our dicks while a bunch of fascists and oligarchs take over our entire fucking lives. Holy shit. Anyway, back to the Iraq Memorial Day special. You got me talking about the fucking military-industrial complex, man. It's a military-industrial complex, insurance companies. Oh, man, get me going, I tell you. Dying Iraq War veteran Thomas Young reacts to George W. Bush joke about missing WMD. So I want to bring this one up. This is an absolute fucking classic if you've been following politics for a while. But, I cut my teeth on the Iraq War. This was kind of my war. Right, Iraq and Afghanistan. And, I remember this. I might have seen this live. I was watching Democracy Now! Every single day back then. And it's good to see classic Democracy Now! it's a goddamn shame what the fuck's going on over there right now. I gotta say, I just shake my head. I don't know what the fuck I'm even looking at. You know? I don't even know. You got Seymour Hersh on? Seymour Hersh over here talking about the, you know, I mean, motherfucker, I mean, over here, it's his base assumption is that Zelensky is an asshole for even fighting back against Russia. What kind of take is that? So I got my criticisms of Democracy Now! Right now, but ain't nobody going to take away their pedigree from back in the day. I mean, this shit is, I mean, they were on top of it. No one was doing coverage, you know, on America's wars like Democracy Now! Was. It's just that, you know, that's why I keep shaking my head when I watch fucking Seymour Hersh or another goddamn Medea Benjamin interview. Holy shit. All right. I'm sorry. This classic intro, used to rock out to this every day.
Thomas, I wanted to go to a part of the film Body of War that shows a gathering of the political, corporate, and media elite in Washington. It was the White House Correspondents' Dinner of 2005.
Just
and it
realized I've been
includes
drinking coffee.
President
I don't have
Bush
any
joking around about
food
the
in me.
missing weapons of mass destruction. And it's followed by the First
Sorry,
Lady.
interrupted the most important part. So he's talking about the context here. Fucking George Bush making jokes about the motherfucking war and shit. And by this time, this wasn't like the start of it. You know, this was like kind of well into it. By this time, the war really, it was like, okay, what are we doing? You know, what's the point of this? What's going on? It was the excitement was over, and people were starting to wake up from this idea that America's problems are going to be fixed by bombing some motherfuckers a million miles away. You know, in places that the Americans couldn't even dream to even pronounce. Dealing with tribal conflicts that go back fucking 500 years. Anyway, so people were really starting to wake up to it by this time. So that's kind of the climate when George Bush made his little funny joke here.
Political, corporate, and media elite in Washington. It was the White House Correspondents' Dinner of 2005, and it includes President Bush joking around about the missing weapons of mass destruction, and it's followed by the First Lady, Laura Bush.
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere.
Scalia, criminal.
Nope, no weapons over there.
Wow,
maybe under
dog.
here.
What the fuck is so fucking funny, Bush? What the fuck is so fucking... I mean, honestly, beyond tone deaf. People applauding and clapping and laughing. These are supposed to be journalists.
I said to him the other day, George, if you really want to end tyranny in the world, you're going to have to stay up later. Ladies and gentlemen, I am a desperate housewife.
They're so insulated. They don't want to know about people like Thomas.
How you doing, buddy?
And the 4 or 5% of the population that is actually sacrificing for this war.
That was Kathy Smith, mother of Thomas Young, from the film Body of War. And before that, Laura Bush and former President George W. Bush joking about WMDs at the 2005 White House Correspondents' Dinner. Thomas, your reaction when you first heard the president joking in that way?
My initial reaction was, how callous. He has hundreds of thousands of men and women on the front line and in Baghdad in general, fighting because of some fictional weapon of mass destruction that he decided to walk around the Oval Office and fake hide and seek with WMD. That was a shaming moment for me. And the Dixie Dicks main lead singer got in trouble for saying that overseas.
Dixie
she
Chicks.
is ashamed that President Bush from Texas. I, for one, am ashamed President Bush was an American.
Whoa.
And Phil
And
Donahue.
then to hear Laura make the joke about her being a desperate housewife, there are tens of thousands of military relatives who would want nothing more than to be a desperate housewife.
Yeah.
As long as their husband was safe at home.
Yeah. Widows, and the women, the wives, the loyal wives that take care of their husbands that come back in that condition. Right? I don't know if that's his wife or his mother. I think it's his wife. If not, it's a very young mother. But this is this is why the people who make war need to be heavily scrutinized. And when we do things like Ukraine, we need to have those philosophical questions, okay? Because this is what war does to you. Rips you apart. And yeah, it was absolutely shameful. And, also I'd like to point out that, to the people that say, they want the old Republican Party back. No, Trump is the creation of the direction that the Republican Party, the right-wing party, was going in. And as you can see here, 100% callous. Making jokes about your failed invasion, getting a bunch of people killed for no goddamn reason, spending a bunch of our money, mission accomplished, right? So to the people that say, we should, to the neoliberals basically that want to go back to some status quo, where the Republicans were, still sane, still quote unquote sane. I'd like to remind them that this is just the trajectory of this party: authoritarianism, war making, excuses, completely. This teetotaling Nancy Fancy Boy cheerleader. No offense to the cheerleaders out there. It's a very athletic, demanding, but I mean, come on, this fucking fancy pants Nancy boy over here, daddy's boy, addicted to party drugs, gets himself in a fancy little position of power, allows himself to be completely manipulated, puppeteered, by people with a evil agenda. I get to go on Ellen. I just want to remind people, Trump is Frankenstein's monster. He's not some aberration. He's the creation of this goddamn fascist party. But those journalists would be laughing at that veteran, where there's so many people and they're blind to evilness. Well, I mean, look, you had to have been there to understand what it was like to be. I mean, it just this kind of stuff was all over. It was like everything. See here. Yeah, so I think this is the one where she pretends to be an old lady scared about the terrorists. See here, we can find one. Yeah, this is a gag about how their wedding was on 9/11, and she didn't want to cancel it. There was this assumption that America was under attack, unquestionably, that it was Iraq that did it. The whole thing, man. It's hard to really like explain.
Hello, darlings. This is Miss Cleo coming to you live from our studio. And it is very special infomercial. I'll be taking calls and giving psychic readings live on the air.
Oh my goodness, would you look at that?
Yeah, so hold on.
I can tell you things about operation. Yes, baby, it is.
Oh, honey, you're the one that can see into the future.
Yes, darling, you got the right Cleo.
Oh, honey, can I ask you a question?
One.
Was you working on September the 10th?
It was everything. It saturated the Iraq war, saturated pop culture.
Well, Yes.
With from the angle that we're under attack and that a retaliation is not only necessary, but how the insulting part is how big does it need to be, right? They fucked with us, now we're gonna fuck with them. I mean, it was everywhere.
Really? You didn't see anything strange gonna happen on that next day?
No.
Nothing you could go on TV and maybe warn people about. Honey, was you working September the 9th? And maybe you got a message from the spirit.
So there you go. You get my point. You couldn't turn on TV and like every TV show had like 9/11 messages. You want to trip balls? You want to trip some balls? You want to talk about how 9/11, bro? Sit down. Sit your ass down. Sit your ass down.
Since the tragedy, I have been in touch with all of my family, which has brought us closer, because I've been able to call everyone and talk to them and see how everyone was and make sure everyone was safe.
I've just wanted to be near my family, especially my mother, and it really shows me who's important in my life, who I really want to be around at this time.
Being with my family's helped me a lot. My sister, my mom, my dad have been really great.
The whole family's kind of coming together and sending each other emails, really nice, emails about how much we care about each other, and phone calls, and just, I miss you, I love you.
I have 3 grandkids. The most amazing thing that I've found is that adults and children are on the same level playing ground with us. We're all inexperienced with what's happened. And with most things in life, it's one foot slowly in front of the other.
Now, more than ever, it's important for people like you to express themselves every day.
Yeah, express yourself. We're the victim. The attack came out of nowhere. Even if you buy the narrative of the attack, right, that it was, Iraq or sending terrorists or whatever, that, or Saudi Arabia getting training and all this stuff, even if you buy the bullshit, right, there was a reason for us to be attacked. Why would we be doing that? The whole thing. Like, I'm just trying to get over to you that you could not turn on the TV, turn on the radio without being reinforced with this victim mentality, this retaliation mentality, right? That Fallujah when Fallujah happened, there wasn't even like a question of its morality in mainstream American media. There wasn't even a debate about its morality. It was happening in Democracy Now!, but no, there wasn't even a debate about the morality of what was happening in Fallujah. It was understood that it was fully justified, and that whole media, right, bubble was one of the big reasons why. John Axel, you're asking, very deep philosophical questions, right? I'd ask you to, maybe ask a much smarter person. My thing is, justice, enforcement, transparency, checks and balances. We must understand that the heart of men, every center of every man is evil, and that's where checks and balances and transparency comes in. That there's just no question. We just don't allow people to, to hide in a, close the door, the people in power to, hide behind, their power. We just say that, no, if you want this position, there's certain transparency that needs to be applied to you. Deal with it, right? The emoluments clause is a great start, but we should expand on that idea. So anyway, that's, I'm not looking for a philosophical why. I just know that everyone in power has the capability for evil, and it takes a great amount of will. It takes a very special man or woman to be in power and not allow that to, destroy them. So all I can say is what we need to do, which is checks and balances, transparency, and on the lot. But yeah, there you go. So bleeding into this is all relevant. This is all relevant because this was the attitude. This was the fervor that brought these men to Iraq, right? Why the fuck were we even there, right? Well, there's a very complicated reason why, but this was the justifications at the time. That was a little sample of what that shit was like every single day, dude. Every single fucking day, dude. You were not allowed to push back on the Iraq war, dude. It was America gets its revenge. It was almost a holiday. But here we go. U.S. Army veteran story. I killed 4 people in 1 hour in Iraq.
I'm Corporal Bonnie. Everyone calls me Bone. Been here about 9 months. Lost a couple good friends over here. I just hope that when I go home, and you know my kids, if I ever have them, I hope I can convey to them what I've seen and what I've done. Craig's been hit. Craig's been hit. Let's go. Let's go. Hurry up. Hurry up. And so then I remember I heard incoming fire. There's 2 guys that were probably 40 meters down the alleyway.
What were we
First
doing
one was,
there?
He was shooting at me with the AK. And the guy behind him had an RPG, a rocket-propelled grenade. And he kind of had it up over his shoulder, and he was bringing the end down. So I popped a safety round out, and I let go with 50 cal and lit them up.
Lit them
I remember seeing an arm and a leg fly through the air. I mean, there were piles of meat.
I mean, you hit somebody with a 50 cal bullet, they literally explode. You know, you don't even have to get close to them. You don't even have, you know, it's disgusting. So yeah, I could imagine that to be, you know, quite traumatizing. 2 people standing there, and then the next thing, literally piles of meat. Look at that. Look at that. What the fuck were we doing? What the fuck were we doing? Did this fix anything? You know, did this do a goddamn thing? You know, except make a lot of assholes money. Look at them punching down their front fucking door. Yeah, of course they're using IEDs. Imagine, put yourself, I mean, I kept saying this back in the Iraq War, but put yourself in their shoes. What the fuck would you do? Some motherfucker strapped up like this, kicking down your front door. What would you do? Man, get the hell out of there.
I could see the guy with a buttstock and then a barrel of an AK. Someone was kind of climbing over the roof, and I walked about 3 rounds on him. His head just, you know, exploded. And I was still scanning, and I looked and I saw a guy who was kind of creeping. Fired a couple rounds and I kind of missed, and he kind of froze and looked at me, and so I just adjusted a little bit, and I fired 3 more rounds, and those hit him. So I just kept shooting. I put about another 8 rounds down. I could see most of them weren't going past him, so that means that the tracers were pinging around inside his body cavity. And he fell down on the ground, and he didn't move after that. You know, it's pitch black. All the power was off in the city. 50, 60 miles an hour through these tight Iraqi streets. I remember just orange. We got hit by an IED from the right side of the road, and Sergeant Morales came over the radio and he said, "Craig's gone. Craig's gone, dude." And so, I'd been in Iraq for about 5.
They were looking for insurgents, right? People that were basically, you know, bomb makers and organizers, or, you know, people that they knew, you know. So, and where did they get their information? Some schmuck told them, right? They got their they got their man on the inside, right? And some guy. Half the time, you know, half the people sitting in Abu Ghraib are people that, you know, had a neighbor that was pissed off, you know, at them. And they're like, oh, they tell the American troops, oh, hey, yeah, this guy's making bombs, bro. You better go kick down his front door and scoop him up. And they would. And they fucking would. You know, but I mean, half the time they wouldn't find anything. I mean, more than half the time. I think it was like over 90% of the time they would find jack shit. You know, because you're not going to, it's a needle in a haystack. You know?
5 months at that point, and it had not rained once. And the minute, it's bizarre. The moment that transmission came over the radio, because he just said it twice, and then he got off the radio, and it downpoured for about 30 seconds. Can't explain it, but it just rained for 30 seconds, and it stopped.
Wow.
Over the space of about an hour, I was in my first firefight. I killed, 4 people being the first 4 people I've ever killed. I lost, another, fellow platoon mate or soldier. Yeah, it's kind of different getting out of the Army. I was 29 years old. I was in charge of between 35 and 45 people. So when you get out, it's kind of, I applied for some management type jobs. Just in charge of like 10, 12 people. The only job I could get in retail was, before the store opened, stocking shelves. There's hundreds of thousands of veterans that are struggling, and they're not because they're lazy or because they're unskilled. It's because they're unappreciated. The majority of civilians, they don't even know there's a war going on. They don't know that we're sending thousands of troops back to Iraq. They have no clue.
That's by design. That's by design. The news isn't even allowed to show dead soldiers on their TV. Not allowed to show it. What kind of shit is that? They make the ultimate sacrifice, and then we hide them. Put a curtain. Oh, what a hero. He's such a hero, we can't even see him.
Clue. Now I'm working as an armed security guard, and I'm waiting on my clearance to come back for a military contracting job in Afghanistan. The only thing that really pays extremely well for someone like me is doing overseas high-risk security.
Yeah, 6 we got an IED break. Where? Stop him, stop him. Took shrapnel to the head, and we don't know how he's doing. Last we knew he was unconscious with head injuries. It's not usually a very good thing.
John Aragon. Sergeant John David Aragon.
You're literally seeing something that CNN would be fined for.
His mother Denise on Facebook, and I just sent her a message and said who I was, and she wrote back immediately, and she's like, yeah, I knew your nickname Bone, but I didn't know your whole name. And so then we told her, that we kind of hesitant at first, but then we told her that,
welcome back.
We named our son Aragon after Sergeant Aragon, and she was overwhelmed. So we sent her a picture of our son.
Is that his last name?
It was very emotional for her, and she thanked us, and she put the picture up in her apartment.
Then I assume he'll be in Oakland Raiders.
We're kind of in contact with her every once in a while. We'd write on the June 12th, the date that he died, and on February 24th, his birthday, I'd always just write her, note that I was thinking of her, and she's part of the family.
I'm not going to go vegetarian anytime soon, but I will say that there is an unbelievable amount of cruelty in factory farming and industrial farming, and I have no problem paying more for my protein, knowing that these animals got some semblance of a life before they were slaughtered. But yeah, I hear you, John Axel. Watch one PETA, watch one film from PETA, and you'll be like, we really do need to do something about the cruelty.
I didn't hear from her for a couple months. I didn't really think anything of it. And then one of the other guys that was fairly close to Sergeant Aragon, he wrote to me, and he had told me that Denise had killed herself.
Wow.
And she just couldn't, I guess her words that she left when she died was that she just couldn't handle the loss of her son.
That's rough. That's rough. These are real people, and that's what makes this so evil, right? That's why the guy who's living high off the hog, off the military-industrial complex, is a bastard, right? Because this is not, this was a completely meaningless conflict, just like Afghanistan, just like Vietnam. I mean, the list really does go on and on and on. There's like 2, 3, maybe 4 justified wars in America's history, right? The war against the American Revolution, obviously, World War II, obviously, and maybe a couple other minor, conflicts, smaller conflicts, related to, international peacekeeping and all that. But I mean, look at the history. Look at the history. Every time we dip our red, white, and blue dick in the motherfucking in the goddamn ink, the situations where it's justified and it works and it makes sense, like in Ukraine, are actually extremely rare. And that's I think that's what's so interesting is how so much of the left is responding to Ukraine. Because they just, they're on their own kind of robotic, rigid, ideology, very similar to the right? They simply can't bend around this idea that, I don't know, maybe this conflict is justified. Maybe we do have to push back sometimes, because they've made their entire career out of, conflicts like this. Like, what the fuck is Uncle Sam doing? You're booting down some poor sap's door. You find nothing. You send a 19-year-old out there to get blown to pieces for what? And the answer is nothing. The answer is profiteering. And that's what makes it all so tragic. So speaking of Ukraine, we got our final interview with the Ukrainian soldier. I thought, let's get the story, from what's happening right now. What's happening like literally as we speak. This is kind of the Zoomers war, isn't it? This is kind of the Zoomers' first war. Pretty good war to start off on. Of course, there have been other wars since the start of the Zoomer generation, of course, but this is kind of a big one. And I got to say, you guys got pretty fucking lucky. Go fucking figure for you Zoomers living that charmed life. You happen to get a pretty cut and dry kind of conflict here. It's pretty obvious who's what needs to happen here. We, of course, not an invasion of Russia. Slow down, Aaron Mate. But no, a pushback against Russian imperialism. It needed to happen. Look at the history of Russia in the last 20 years. It needed to happen. Russia's been, their little tentacles, little wars here and there, trying this cultural assimilation shit. So it needed to be checked. So let's get this interview here with the Ukrainian soldier, and that'll be the end of our Memorial Day special.
Weeks of a brutal and deadly assault, the Russian mercenary group Wagner claims it has captured the eastern Ukrainian city of Bakhmut. Wagner posted a video of its soldiers holding up the Russian flag and claiming that they had captured the town after 224 days of brutal fighting. Now, the leaders of Ukraine...
I love this picture, right? It really does say it all. Right? It really does say it all. This is probably the nicest building that they could they could find. Big win. Big win. Jesus Christ. I mean, look at, I mean, you know what I mean? Oh, wow. Probably half these guys are probably dead or injured by now. Big victory.
After 224 days of brutal fighting. Now, the leaders of Ukraine deny this. They say Ukrainian forces are still in control of buildings flanking Bakhmut. CNN's Nick Robertson is in eastern Ukraine for us. And
I don't
Nick,
understand
you're near the front lines. Is this potential?
I don't understand the Ukrainian side being delusional about it either. I mean, I get what they're doing. They're playing the geopolitical game, but I don't understand how that's. I don't know. I would have preferred them to say, yeah, no, we moved out when it's strategic, but I guess it's really hard to deliver a nuanced message like that. And instead, it's just easier to be like, well, we didn't technically lose it, blah blah blah. Zelensky saying the heart of Bakhmut, doesn't, Bakhmut, since Bakhmut doesn't really exist anymore, they didn't really conquer anything, and really Bakhmut still exists in the hearts of all Ukrainians. I don't know. I guess people eat that shit up. I don't know. I'm too cynical for it.
Potential defeat problematic for Ukraine in the long run?
Yes, it is. It's a morale issue. It's a morale issue for them and for the Russians. The Russians gain something. This is a tough...
Don't worry. We're getting to the soldier interview in a second, folks.
war for the Ukrainians. They've lost this. It makes many soldiers question their political leaders. Did they make the right decision? Lose so many soldiers? The counter narrative is it sucked up and killed a lot of Russian troops. But if Russia pushes through Bakhmut and comes over the hill and through the countryside beyond, it moves on to the next towns. And there's no doubting that that's their target. We were along the front lines that are very, very close to Bakhmut. And you get the real sense from soldiers there that this war just is giving them a kicking.
Barely out of the armoured troop carrier. Incoming artillery.
We're just going to wait in this little basement until the shelling's over. Then they think it'll be safe to move forward to the front positions.
A few minutes later, safe to come out at this army outpost a few miles from Bakhmut. Last night was hard, a lot of shelling. Call sign Gambit tells us the soldier is still shell-shocked from an anti-tank rocket attack.
We're going to get back in the vehicle, try to get a little closer to the front lines.
10 days ago, these troops pushed the Russians back around Bakhmut, but their advance is slowing and harder. We get to a small HQ. Call sign Fox, a former farmer, is readying his troops for their coming shift on the front line, stopping the Russians in Bakhmut from advancing.
How hard is that?
It's impossible to describe these feelings, he says. You can only experience it. No words can express it. They shell a lot. As we talk, it is clear this war is taking its toll.
You only have to look at the soldiers' faces here to know how tough this battle is. They all look worn. They say morale's high, but their faces are telling a different story.
Well, it's complicated, isn't it? Kind of want to bitch slap them. It's a little complicated, isn't it? You know? Morale, you know, because they can know what they want, what they're fighting for, and know why they're there, and you know, and be strong and have a high morale, but still be like, you know, we could die any second, and that shit'll get to you, dude. I'm being overly critical. I don't know. I'm being overly critical. It's good to see CNN close to the front lines, quite frankly.
We move on towards other positions and stop as the shelling increases.
We've just been told the place that we were going to is under heavy shelling, so we're going to pull back from here, go somewhere else.
In the battalion bunker, the commander tells us the Russians have ramped up their shelling on his troops since they advanced. Tons of ammo, shrapnel, tanks firing, everything. His unit's drones recorded their recent successes, but now the Russians have regrouped, and in a moment of candor following losses the previous night, admits morale is flagging.
Was this a house and he was in the basement? I'm seeing like bricks and was this like a shed or something? Whoa.
Let's be honest, he says. We are fighting heavily for more than a year. My soldiers went through many battles and 2 rotations near Bakhmut. Troops are exhausted, but we endure.
Bakhmut, which is just over the hill in that direction, has become an object lesson in how Russia's wealth in men and ammunition can prevail, and that unless Ukraine gets the modern weaponry support from its allies, it's going to struggle to tip the balance.
Call sign Fox and his unit load up for their hard miles at the front. An end of war, getting back to their families. What drives them into the shelling?
And in another bizarre development, some separatist Russian forces who are allied with Ukraine have...
I take it back. I take it back. He's doing a good job. He risked his neck. I don't want to slap. I feel bad. I feel bad. All right, I take it back.
Crossed the border and actually invaded Russia?
Yeah, look, what the troops are doing in and around Bakhmut and in other places along the front line is to try to find a weakness in the Russian lines.
All right, so this is actually old news, you know, covering, this is the first slap then hug. No, he's doing a good job. So this is actually old news. This is like 10 days ago. But anyway, so we're actually going to get into the Ukrainian news here up next. But there you go, folks. That's my Memorial Day special, part 1 and part 2. You know, wanted to, you know, I mean, it's their day. They deserve a voice. And, you know, all too often, I've said this before in the first Memorial Day special there, but all too often their sacrifice is stained by the fact that the conflict is not justified, right? World War I, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. There was no good goddamn reason why we had to be there. And if we ever truly want to fix this problem, we do need to go after the warmongers, the Henry Kissingers, the Dick Cheneys. They do need to be held accountable, either while they're alive or retroactively after they're dead. Right? We do need to get to the point, though, where an institution like The Hague has far more jurisdiction. Of course, the United States would never allow that, right? But that's the problem. We need to get to a point internationally where there's no more of this, well, America gets a special pass, right? If we're ever really to truly have peace and unity across the globe, there does have to be a time where America's crimes, you know, where it's held accountable for the crimes it's committed against humanity. So, not just America, though. I mean, all empires, right? But it's most important for the most powerful empire to be held accountable, and that's really the biggest challenge. I'm not saying it's easy. That it's actually, you know, that is almost guaranteed to be filled with bloodshed, trying to hold the military-industrial complex. It's gotten too out of hand. You know, it's gotten way too out of hand. Any entity that does try to challenge its power will be, you know, I do believe that person or that entity would be the target of violence from the military-industrial complex. I think that's just a fact. You know, it does sound a little conspiratorial, I guess, but honestly, you know, these people are stone cold, and you know they don't really appreciate challenges to their power. Look at Chelsea Manning, right? They don't really appreciate challenges to their power. So anyway, thank you very much, YouTube. Thank you to the veterans, you know, who sacrificed, either, you know, sacrificed in a war that they shouldn't have had to sacrifice, or made the ultimate sacrifice against true evil, like in World War II, or in this case with Ukraine. And I'm not saying Russia true evil, but I'm saying the government of Russia is about as evil as it gets. Their aims are very clear. It's imperialism, old school imperialism. That's kind of the problem. But anyway, thank you for your sacrifice. I know it means nothing from someone like me, but thank you for all that you do. And I hope, you know, and hopefully I'm not offending you by saying this to the soldier, but I hope for a world one day where you're not necessary, where you get to live a normal life and you don't have to pick up a gun. That is truly one of my, you know, greatest dreams, you know, world peace, right? But anyway, thank you so much.